Hello, and welcome to ShePack Unleashed. I'm one of your hosts, Tanya.
I'm Nicole. Welcome to your weekly dose of candid discussion and the pursuit of finding your tribe in this journey of motherhood, womanhood, and sisterhood.
I'm Ashley. Join us as we leave no stone unturned. In each episode, we have heart-to-heart conversations that aim to challenge and empower one another.
I'm Jenny. No more waiting. ShePack Unleashed begins now.
On today's episode, wills, because YOLO doesn't cover custody.
Sure doesn't.
It sure doesn't. So this week we're going to talk about everyone's favorite thing, estate planning. Because this is super important and we all have struggled with
It's not easy.
It's not easy. So we have a special guest on to talk us through. This is Sofia, who is a practicing lawyer, business owner in our community, mom, who focuses on wills, estate planning, real estate now, small businesses, all kinds of things.
All the things, except litigation and criminal law. We not down those roads.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you.
So first, we're pretty old friends at this point.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly when we first met, but our kids go to school together.
I think they went to Primrose together.
We did Primrose for a little,
Yeah.
went to Primrose for a little bit together, and then are at a Montessori school together now.
Yep.
And so, Nicole, I just want to say first, I'm so excited to be here with you all, in part because I've seen what you've put together, and I think it's so awesome and needed, and also fun to listen to. But for my background, I'm from the DC area. My dad was Foreign Service, so we always moved around a lot and jumped from place to place. But it's been great to put down roots here. So my husband is from Chapel Hill. We moved here in 2015. And so now this is the longest place I have ever lived in my whole life.
That's crazy.
Which is pretty cool. And the me of, London and Brussels would be absolutely ashamed to know that Chatham County, North Carolina was
Is the place to be.
where I had decided to be. But for the law, I was in New York working for a big law firm during the crash of 2008.
Oh.
And I worked with a lot of the big banks, and I saw the collapse. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Some people are like, did you know you want to be a lawyer? I didn't. I just knew I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something that related to people, that helped families. I wanted to know who I worked with. I wanted them to know me. And estate planning is really about actually helping others and helping families. And I know the work that I do can make a difference for a family.
For sure.
And so, I wouldn't say that I got into it by being like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do wills and things like that. I didn't even really know what they were. But once I found it and I realized that there are only so many occupations where you can be like, I did something good today. And so that's kind of where we started the firm. And now my husband and I run a firm that has 8 attorneys and 12 staff members. And we have a very rambunctious daughter who's 5 3/4. And
So very important 3/4.
Yeah. Very important. And our son is 8. And so pretty much before I came to you all today, I was still wearing my pajamas, working at home, getting the kids back into routine, and trying to make the business work.
Yeah, and your business has grown a lot over the last couple of years because you guys started just sort of the two of you and your husband, and have grown.
We have grown. So this time last year, there were 5 of us, and now there are 20
Holy moly. That's huge. In 1 year.
in 1 year.
Yeah.
I am a very tired person.
Yeah. And you're a big staple in our community. If you are looking for somebody who says anything, it's like Sophia's out there doing fundraising for Asheville, or out there doing many good things in the community and putting on lots of events.
Same to you. And when we were doing some work for our school, I was trying to find business partners, and I'm just like, okay, call Nicole. We'll get this done. We'll make sure.
I like to write a check versus going to the school.
They were asking us to bring individual things for the teacher's taco lunch, bring the lettuce or whatever. And Nicole and I were like, can we just send them some Chipotle?
Yeah.
Nobody wants individual lettuce and
Yeah.
tacos. That's just
And I don't want a
sad.
potluck.
It's not efficient.
No, we're not. We like to be efficient. Yeah. So we do that. So we do a lot of things in the community, but we're so glad to have you here to talk about estate planning and wills, and you've done it for us personally. So you are our attorneys, and I don't know if this is confidential. and you are our attorney, but you are not the attorney for everybody that's listening here. So just know that this is not legal advice. This is just girl time talking about all the things you have to schedule.
Well, and I think this was an important conversation that we wanted to have because for a long time, I struggled with it because I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to about it.
Yeah.
And it felt so intimidating that we just put our head in the sand for a long time about it. And I know that we aren't alone in that situation. And so I think we only just got our will put together in the last 3 years. I think is when we went to California and did our big anniversary trip, the two of us. And I was like, if our plane crashes, we have zero plan.
Yep.
For all of our things. And so we finally got our act together and we got it done. But I think that was the goal here, is that we just want this to open a conversation maybe for some people who haven't thought about it, maybe who have and just are intimidated by it, and maybe give you some ideas of how and what to talk about with a professional in your area.
Absolutely
Yeah.
right. And again, these are really tough decisions. And, I struggle with it personally as well, right? Like it's like many things where like you can be really good at giving advice, but it's still hard to do it yourself. And so even when I'm looking at my documents, like, my husband and I both do this. We do it all day, and we still have to like remind ourselves, hey, we need to make that change, or like, have we updated this, that, or the other thing? And so it's not like it's ever easy.
So could we back up for just a second for anyone who is listening who only knows the term, but doesn't actually know like what's included? Can you just give like in a nutshell, estate planning includes XYZ?
So for most families with kids, what we are looking at when we're thinking about estate documents is first and most importantly, guardianship. The guardian is responsible for the physical care and well-being of your child. And so that's really what a lot of people get stuck on, like right there.
Yeah.
I think it took us 6 months when we drafted it up. And by the time Mike was like, here's your bill. We'll finish it when you figure out like who you're putting down. And I was like, yep, okay, got it. Sorry.
But no, that's exactly right. And that to me, the only thing that I can share that helps me is no decision is making a decision. Inaction is, think of the worst person, the relative you hate the most, the one that you're always like fake smiling at, and you're like, oh God, like that's the one who might end up with your kids. And so guardianship, I can talk more about this, but really it's what it comes down to is estate planning is thinking about who cares for your children, who handles the money for the kids, and how is that handled. And so usually there we're talking about some type of a will or a trust, and there are more specifics about that. And then we're also thinking about your care if for whatever reason you could not care for yourself. And so that can mean that you're not able to get on the internet, right? When something needs to be done for the sale of your house, or it can be an incapacity and so on. And so there we're usually looking at a financial power of attorney and also healthcare documents. And so that's usually going to be a healthcare power of attorney, something called a living will, also known as an advance directive, and then some type of an information release, like a HIPAA release. And so usually when people are talking about estate documents, those are kind of the core part that we're looking at for a young family.
Okay.
And I don't know about the rest of you, but nothing tested my marriage more than going
The
through
will.
estate planning.
When did you do this, Nicole? Recently or a long time ago?
So this is the other thing to think about is it is not set in stone. You can change and update it, right? And so we did it a long time ago. Before Steve and I went on a solo trip, this was like a stipulation of his. Like, we are not allowed to go somewhere without the children unless we have this set in stone, right? And so we did it before we even had Cole. And so it was only with Evan. And then recently we had a change in our family situation where we needed to update who was getting guardianship of our children and who was in our will and who was in it. And it was the first time and the second time was sort of like a tit for tat battle with my husband and I.
So you guys were in opposing thoughts of what should happen, or was it specifically related to guardianship of the kids, or were there other parts?
There's other parts because it wasn't just the kids, but we did have struggle with the kids. And and for disclaimer, Jenny gets my children. But that wasn't the thing. It was
Congratulations.
it was also
You're so lucky.
I don't want you to go anywhere, but I love your kids. So I don't know how to respond to that.
it also was you and Jenny go away a lot together. what happens when y'all like die in a
Steve, you'll still exist.
but like, and then he dies. Then who does he pick? So like we
Yeah, that's fair.
down the line of like several different
You
scenarios.
have like a decision matrix.
Yeah, of like, because we travel so much together.
Yeah.
like, what would happen? And then,
true.
Like there was just a lot of decisions. And then like what happens to all of our money? He like wanted to put people in there that I was like, are you fucking serious? You want to give them something? And I was like, absolutely not. And he was like, they have to. And I was like, so we had lots of arguments over this.
So this is an ongoing thing, but earlier when you just had one kid and then ongoing.
We didn't do the like full gambit. I feel
You
like
did the bare bones.
the bare bones
The first time around.
First time around.
That's where I'm at.
Second time, we did a very much more like comprehensive, like moving things in trust and getting things like situated because we have very complicated
Yes.
structure now that we didn't have.
Yeah.
Now I should know the answer to this because we do have a will. We have the trust established now, and I think we have all of our things situated. It's been a few years since we did it. Does this even include something as granular as like how you want your funeral to be if you die, right? And like the things that you want to happen to you. It can cover all of that as well.
It can. So typically what I suggest is in legal documents that require a notary and witnesses and often a lawyer to update them, I don't want to get way too specific about things that are likely to change. And so often, kind of where I want a client to be able to tell me, like, do you feel super strongly about cremation or burial or like very anti something or another? And then we provide a document that's just kind of like I'd like to give you my last wishes. And that can be updated whenever. So funeral arrangements can't be legally binding.
Yeah.
Who's going to sue because you didn't have that
Yeah, you didn't play the right song.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I really prefer to keep it something that like is personal to you that you can update whenever you want to. Okay. But I had a client and they were the sweetest person in the world, but they had it down to the Spotify playlist.
Oh my.
Oh my God.
And I was like, Spotify might not even exist. Like that's a lot to put in a will that now if you change, now there's, some other cool thing out there. You have to come back to me and sit here and do this
And then
all
pay
again?
money for that adjustment. Okay.
Yeah. And so typically I just want like if it's a really strong statement and you want to put it in there in a way that at least feels legally binding.
Okay.
My really strong statement in my legally binding document is you make sure I am really, 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 really
Did you
dead.
put that in the document?
It is in the document.
Do you have stipulations on how we come to that conclusion?
You need to be sure I
Yeah, we do, because at a very official lunch in Key West,
Yeah.
over a gallon beverage we shared with many a colorful straw,
Bucket.
we somehow came to this topic months and months ago, almost a year ago now.
Yeah, 'cause
it was for your birthday.
Yeah.
And we added a tab on our shared Google Doc that not only lists like our phone number, our shirt size, our order at different restaurants, but the next tab happens to be what to do if I die, from like if there's a will, like some of the like preferences you were mentioning.
which drawer's empty.
Before the field.
If I'm dead, go find this drawer and throw it all
And
away.
you can tell there were a lot of beverages involved because of the typing, but like it was actually a really funny conversation, ironically.
Pleasant way to like
lighten the mood.
to share some of those thoughts and even just to flesh them out. I had no idea that you could be cremated and then turned into diamonds. I didn't know that.
Ashley is going to be diamonds.
Yes.
Ashley was going to be diamonds.
But it can be updated.
I can be a little diamond pendant.
I told my mom she's going to be a bath bomb.
That's not, see, I just like,
I'm
your
going to
mother's
send her
ashes?
off to the ocean and watch her.
nope. Surely you're kidding.
I'm not.
I just feel like this is a little macabre and we should check with Donna.
I asked Donna.
No, you don't tell Donna. Donna tells you.
I said, Donna, do you have a will? And Donna says, no, I don't have a will. And I said, well then, Donna, you're going to be a bath bomb.
This is a great example of if you don't get your stuff in order, that is in fact a decision.
A bath bomb. So just know that your loved ones will
That
do
would
that
make
to
my
you.
list. Bring somebody into a bath bomb and definitely make the list of some of the weirdest.
And I'm going to send her to the ocean and watch her fizzle away.
I'm going to talk to Donna about this.
with her.
No, just I'm going to send her to the ocean. But I want her to like fuzz and like
You want the ceremony as she wants her ashes in the ocean. I see.
someone make her.
I see.
can
We
picture it so vividly.
certainly don't have that level of detail. Before Beto and I went to Cuba, which was like our first major trip on airplanes together without, at the time, our oldest, I was the one who was like, we can't go until we have, and bless his heart, my neighbor at the time, because it was like a week or two before we went. This was really like my panic setting in, put something together very quickly for us, mostly around what would happen with our child. And he wrote it in that it was like for this child and other future children, but we never went back to do the full kit and caboodle. So I don't even know what else is there, because it was very much like so it's definitely time for a revision. This was, probably 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But I've been avoiding it.
Comment.
You can comment. That's what we're here for. But I think part of it is just feels overwhelming. Like it feels expensive.
Well,
like when is the right moment? How do I make those choices? Like it feels a lot. So like, I don't know. I almost feel like I need a checklist of what are the things we need to talk about before.
I will say my attorney sends a nice little questionnaire ahead of time that you can fill out in your own time. And
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Write in all the things you're thinking about and ask the questions when you don't have to, like, get a glass of wine. And I sit down and I filled out my little checklist, and they're separate ones.
Oh.
My husband got one and I got one.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And then when we all came together to review the checklist together,
you could see what was different.
To like kind of come together, it felt more manageable, less like intimidating. So that's a good option.
And honestly, I would say that this is just like anything else. And, we were talking earlier on, one of my New Year's goals is getting into fitness or trying to do more fitness. It feels like a big thing. I know it's not the same as death, and I totally hear that. But, we think about New Year, how much you want to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
I promise that if you were working with the right attorney, and I'm not just saying that for me, but like if you're working with the right attorney, the whole reason why you pay them is to go to them and be like, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. Can you tell me? Because I promise I have heard every single question. I have seen every scenario, and therefore I don't mean to say that you're not unique, but most of us are not unique. Like most
You are
of
not
us
special.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, honestly, that's basically my philosophy in life is like most of us are not special. And so honestly, like those things that you're keeping inside because you feel like it's just you, it's your weirdo family. Like it's everybody. And so somebody who knows how to handle this and has seen it will say, okay, yep, we've got that before. I know how to figure out that problem that you have there. And now here's how we're going to get it done. And here's the timeline we're going to get it done on. Because estate planning, I see it again and again, is the type of thing that it lingers and then it becomes another thing on the to-do list that just
never gets done. Yep. It's been on the list, but it's gotten punted and punted and punted.
Well, and to that point, Sophia, I think too, like when you find the right person, right, it won't feel as daunting. It won't feel as uncomfortable. We recently started working with a financial advisor, and it was the first time that I was able to have an open, honest conversation with someone about something I felt very insecure and uncomfortable about. Yep. And I still was able to lay it all on the table and just be like, help me. And she's like, happy to. Great. Absolutely. Right. And so finding someone like you that could help walk through the process where you're not going to feel bad about it. You're not going to feel uncomfortable about it and be like, I'm paying you to know all the answers. I have all the questions. Right. And then sometimes you don't even know what questions you have, but you do.
Is there a certain time that's too soon? Because I feel like most of the people I know did this like when they finally had a kid and they were about to travel.
Yeah.
Like
I feel
what?
Like that's a common calendar.
Or is it? Should this be something you do when you get engaged? Like, at what point do people? What is the right timing?
Turning 18.
Okay.
If we're really getting down to it.
Okay.
And actually, one of the things I help a lot of parents do, and I'm happy this has become more common. But now, like when a kid is going off to college, more colleges now require that they have the power of attorney and the medical.
A college requires that.
Yes, because if you have turned 18 in this country, your parents no longer have access to anything. That is your grades. That is your medical care and costs and so on. That is if you broke your leg or if you were in an accident and taken to the hospital, they can't even know which hospital you are at.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never thought
shared.
about that.
And so I'm worried less about, where your stuff is going to go at age 18, because let's be honest here, like you have no stuff. But a power of attorney and medical documents, I am a very strong proponent. And actually for all of our clients, we do it for a flat fee of $250, which is like very much on the low end. For anybody between 18 and 23.
Okay.
That's like a single person that just needs those documents because honestly, it's so important and it makes such a difference.
I never thought about that.
And so that's really like an area that we talk to parents. And if they're like, oh yeah, my kids are finally 18, I'm like, great. They need these
Happy birthday. Here's your.
It's so interesting because I think about it. Like, my husband was still calling his mom at like 20 to be like, what's my social security number? And like, they couldn't actually help him in the hospital.
Yep.
Interesting.
No, and they couldn't. To me, it's not just help in the hospital. They couldn't know he's in the hospital. The hospital does not call. Like,
It would have to be on the child to notify them.
And if the parents can't find their kid and they call the hospital, or excuse me, the college can't tell them.
Nope.
Without
College cannot
something.
say- so let's imagine your kid is failing out, like you're paying for college and stuff like that, right? Without the kid's authorization, you can't know that.
Oh, interesting.
You have to give the college permission to do all these.
To share.
I can see all these 18th birthday presents we're giving our kids.
Noted.
Like, that's really one of the things, like, we have to realize that turning 18, being an adult, has a certain significance. And personally, I think it's way too young. But like, that as a culture is what we have agreed to deem an adult. And so I don't think there's too soon. I do think there's a lot of too late. And so,
What does too late typically look like? Someone's
When
in the
you're an
hospital,
accident,
like,
you're done, right? Like, what are you going to do?
Or you're unconscious in a hospital.
yeah.
to me, so what I will say is too late. Honestly, if you're dead, like, clearly it's too late, but also you don't know. You're gone, right?
You're like,
Yeah.
if I get, I'm
What I
done.
hate, what kills me or hurts me the most is when I see clients who are on the very end of whether capacity or health or whatever, they don't have a ton of time with their family members. And now they are spending their last few minutes talking about this stuff. Like, this is what you want to spend your last couple conversations. Like, you don't want to talk about it now.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to talk about it when you are on
On
your
limited time.
deathbed. And sometimes I've had clients, especially with things like dementia, where like they kind of come to me when they're like, "Oh, mom, like it's kind of has enough." And then during a signing, we actually have to do like a competency, not like nothing formal like a doctor, but just like I have to know that you are reasonably aware and meet certain legal standards. And if mom doesn't, I have to say, I'm sorry, you
can't.
can't sign.
And at that point, it's too late to change that.
And whatever they have,
It's really
or whatever
tough.
they didn't have, you're stuck with it now.
Oh, wow.
And then for a lot of us, I know we're in the sandwich generation.
I was just gonna say, we're the sandwich generation, so we have young kids and older parents, and like, how many of us have actually had the conversation with our parents about what's in their will?
I have.
Where it is, what their passwords are to their accounts, like.
This is my brain, like Final Destination
What?
brain.
I'm
like
not shocked that this is.
I have had that conversation.
That's why you're everybody's, that's why you're the person.
But I've had two very different conversations with my parents, which are very organized. And here's the thing, and here's what your brother's doing. Here's what, like, we've all had that. And my spouse's mother, who has a lot of assets, doesn't speak English and doesn't have anything, to the point where I was like, should we pay for a present for her? To like go do, because there's already fights between him and his brothers over some of her real estate, and it feels like maybe I should do this, but then I realized
Financial hang up that she's not doing it because of the cost, or is it because it's complex and because the brothers are fighting that she's not
I don't know, because I didn't offer. Like, I want to offer, but I don't know how much money it would be. They would have to be in New Jersey and Ecuador. They would have to speak Spanish. Like, it felt insurmountable, but I was like, this is lacking. And so like, both were uncomfortable conversations, but I will tell you the previous one where they had some sort of answers was a lot easier.
So it's interesting because we've had the conversation. My parents have nothing, no plans, no things, no documents. And like, every time I broach the subject with them, I was like, I don't need anything. Just give it all to my kids. And I'm like, that's not.
But that's not what'll happen.
That's going to cause fights.
If,
Right.
if
I was
they were to
like-
pass away, it would go
To probate?
It would go to the bank.
there
It
are
would-
a lot of different things that
right?
can happen, but I will just pause and say, to me, I don't worry as much about money. It's not that money's not
Yeah.
important, but what I care about is you, like you living. And honestly, in our day and age with people living as long as they do, I'm not so worried about you dying. That'll just cost money and be annoying. I'm worried about you losing capacity and not having family members be able to care for you the way they want to. And so, using an example, if a parent did not have things like the power of attorney and the medical documents, that happens all the time. And there are long, involved, and extremely expensive and cumbersome court processes through which somebody else finally gets appointed to be in those roles. Whereas if they just did 2 documents,
Yeah.
you could do it.
So you're preaching to the choir. My mother had a brain aneurysm. Okay, my father had quadruple bypass surgery. I was like, both of them, I was like, y'all, I need some information here. And my mother was so upset that my father got to make all the decisions when she had a brain aneurysm. I was like, because he's your husband and you have nothing else. And so like, that's the first person it goes to.
So she's been through
Yeah.
an event
Yeah.
that she is fortunate enough to reflect back on.
Yeah.
Right. Recovered from it, is upset about how it went and still not change.
But is that because she feels like, let me pause because I don't want to project. In my experience with our family members who don't and are older, it was because they feel like they don't have things.
That's my mom's thing is we don't have things. What is it?
And they don't have the money to spend to get the legal documents.
So that's my parents.
She's
They're
not
like
connecting the dots
We don't have
of, like,
things,
the
so it doesn't
medical
matter.
piece.
So like Steve and I have talked about how like we're going to like I have to barter with my mom. I'll do this if you do this with me. Like to get her to do the like will planning. But then the opposite
We'll
is
go
like
get a Manny and then go to your will.
Honestly, if there was a gift certificate I could buy, I would.
So we actually talked about doing that for Christmas,
I would.
but
Because who knows if it's going to be $250 or thousands of dollars. Yeah.
But usually what we do, so typically what we are thinking about is with family members. I had a friend who unfortunately recently went through a sudden loss of an uncle. And it was terrible. And she, had to deal with it personally. And so basically was telling all of her family members that like she would pay for, up to X amount for them to just get their estate plan because she's like, I'm the responsible one. I'm the Jenny of the group, right? Like everybody's depending on me. Like I want there to be some documents. And so honestly, like it's not uncommon for a family member to pay for all or part, especially for a family member who's financially struggling. I am not here to ever suggest that people use websites that can do way more harm than good. But I also think that, certainly not for like wills or trusts, but for powers of attorney and healthcare documents, they tend to be very state specific and very what we call statutory, like based in the law, because we want North Carolina banks to see and accept them. We want North Carolina hospitals to see and accept them. And so, I like to believe that mine are better. And like I've gone above and beyond that. Honestly, if somebody was like, okay, I use the statutory North Carolina forms, I'm not thrilled, but
it's something.
It's something. And I would way rather that.
So you know you have that special for the 18 to 35. Can you have one for like the 65 to 95? Like
who feel like they don't have anything but just need the healthcare piece.
I just need the 65 to 95 special for that. Like
this is a great idea because honestly, I don't see why not because it's 18 to 23 because that's like years of college and stuff like that. Like.
And it's like that. We're in that sandwich generation. We got the kids, plus we got the parents who are like kids.
Present.
Yeah.
Like the parents who are like kids somewhat. And you got to be like, guys, we got to do our paperwork now. Okay. We got to be adults. Yeah. But then you've got my husband's family who has it. And Steve is like the executor and we don't know anything about it. Like, I don't know what's in it. I don't know anything about it. I have never seen it. Like, he's never seen it. He just knows that he is his parents' power of attorney. And that's it.
But he doesn't know their wishes?
No.
That's tough.
So
it's like, is it all written down in the wills and it's just going to be like, surprise?
I guess
like
so that's another question. Like, do a lot of people just do surprise? You're my person.
So,
because you don't have to get consent. I mean, you asked me, but that's not.
I could have just put you in there.
Yeah,
like,
crazy to me that you don't have to get consent to like bestow your child upon somebody.
There's so many movies about this.
They can say no. Okay.
So guardianship always comes down to a court. Your wishes in a will are going to be very important. And as long as the will is reasonably recent and it's clear, but like one of the things that to me as a parent gives me peace of mind is some things like you put it in your documents and like that's the way it is, right? You choose your medical agent, that's the way it is. Because of how important guardianship is, it is always going to be finally decided by a court looking at the best interests of the child.
Okay.
And let's imagine you had named somebody and you didn't know this, but they had a drug or alcohol or other problem, right? Other family members, other quote interested parties will have the opportunity to go and say,
contest.
You know what?
Okay.
Do you see a lot of like, so mine is not a family member. Do you see a lot of like non-family members and family members then fighting those non-family member wishes?
Again, if it's in a will, that's a really, really strong thing to have done. And so I will say that, I really don't see it very often because usually it is pretty clear that it was somebody's wish, and it is not uncommon to not name family members. That's actually the joy of using a will, using your own document, because the default under the law absolutely is willing family members.
Okay.
And
that's good to know. So the default is the closest relative?
Usually that is going to be...
geographically, age, or...
So basically people will be able to...
raise their hand.
Say, And so let's say, grandma lives close by, but she's 86 and has trouble getting around. Well, she's probably not going to be the first choice. Whereas aunt 2 states over, who also has 2 kids, that's going to... So it's not just it's best interests of the child is the test. And so it's not just clear cut. But, to me, the whole point of a will is that you have said to the court, hey,
this is what I want.
I have all this information. I know way more about my family than you are ever going to know.
Yeah.
And I said,
I put thought and time and effort into this.
Because that's my biggest
fights with my spouse. And
that is my biggest fear, is that my family then fights the choices I made when I'm dead.
Okay. I'm not going to go there. Yes. I can see that happening.
Yeah. So get ready, ladies. You got to fight.
I think
I have to believe that everyone in family or not would want to do what's best for the child.
But what they believe is best for the child
might be different.
Be different. And that's the part that I struggle with, that I'm afraid. If I'm not going to die, but if I do, that's what's going to happen.
We'll have this podcast to point back
so,
to.
Go back and listen and say, I choose no family.
But that could change, right? Because that's the other thing that I've had to remind myself is it's not yes, it's official and expensive, but things can change. And if 5-10 years from now, I don't want it to be my parents anymore because they are older, you can revise it. It's not completely set in stone.
It's not the same cost as a full first draft. There's usually it's a little cheaper to do a revision if you've already have the bones and all that stuff going.
Is there any sort of recommendation that you have for how frequently you should revise?
Or what moments in life?
Oh,
really?
Okay.
Yeah,
Why?
That's about how often life changes for us. If you think through some big life changes and some adjustments and so on, that's usually about the time frame for people of our age. And so typically what I recommend and I practice is every year when we're doing our taxes and other things I absolutely despise as a small business owner, I look at my documents and I make sure, I'm not reading every single word, but I'm okay, who are my people? Are they still, my people? Am I still comfortable with this? And so that's about the level at which you should be checking and kind of being is that
interesting.
Right?
You say that because I did ours 5 years before, and then we didn't have businesses. We didn't have the amount of assets we have. We
didn't have both child. Yeah.
There was a lot that wasn't in there that I was oh shit, where's all this gonna go or happen to?
And just imagine where you'll be in another 3 to 5 years, right? Think about
taking over the world.
Really, I think it's awesome, but it's also, we think about how much our kids are changing and growing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, at this point in my career, I can almost draw out the life cycle of documents because I have just seen it so many times in so many different ways. And so at this stage, everybody's worried. We're worried about the kids, right? And so there are going to be a couple rounds of changes as we worry about the kids, maybe changing ages of distribution and guardian, and we're adding new businesses and new properties and new assets, dealing with divorce or a move. Those are all the things that are going to happen now. And then as the kids get older, and as we get older, we start to think about the documents for us. Mm-hmm. Most people start to think about the documents for them. And they actually start to put their kids, who are now 25 or 27, like Steve, into some of these roles.
Yeah.
Because now they're saying, who's going to take care of me? Mm-hmm. And so, and then that gets into a different stage of the document.
Okay.
And so there are no documents that just are the way they are. It's just it's a living thing, just like we are.
Does all of those changes, can that exist and be revised from that first original one? Or do you ever have to do a brand new one based on your life stage?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So if somebody comes to me, we actually did this today, we had a client who literally just wanted to swap out their guardians. Somebody had moved, they just wanted to swap the order. That's what's called a codicil, an amendment to the will, and it just said
codicil.
Codicil.
Okay.
I changed this one section of my will. Everything else I'm keeping the same. That's very simple, and that's pretty common for the guardianship.
Yeah.
Then every now and again, we get people who came to us with no businesses and no property.
She's talking about me.
And then, I don't know, they come back to you and are like, we've got 17 businesses and 17 properties.
Yeah, I know that person.
And probably within that.
We had to start from scratch.
Yeah, we need to restructure,
Yeah.
in a more involved way.
That makes sense. Okay.
And also, realistically, marriage and divorce. Those are big ones that, let's imagine we did everything jointly. People get separated or divorced, we probably have to do it again. Or if they're getting married, depending on how that's done, we're thinking about how they're going to care for their spouse, or if they have a prenup or a postnup. And so those are kind of like the big ones.
Okay.
And how do you choose the right lawyer or service? Like, should you go back to where you started or go where you're familiar? It doesn't matter. Like, if someone's listening and they have nothing and they're like, oh, I'm 30, I'm married, I have 2 young kids.
How do I find,
where do they start?
www.estateplanner.com. Like,
Our biggest one is social media and Facebook. So I think a lot of people start by asking their friends, right? Just as all of you here talk about like who you used, who you trusted. I think that's actually a really good starting place of asking other people in the same boat, because we all are or should be thinking about some of this. And it's the same way we find most things, like which summer camps are the kids going to, or which schools, and all the rest of it. I think that, Google can be a tool as well. And I think that Google reviews are worth paying attention to, but also don't, put everything on them.
Sure.
I would trust another mom's voice above that.
basically any social media group you have, go search like
Go find the moms.
planning, and like you'll see like somebody asked a question somewhere.
Exactly right. Or post it yourself, and you'll be surprised how many people will follow it or will go through it. And then most estate planning attorneys, especially if you have a relatively simple process, will offer some type of a complimentary initial meeting or a low cost. I would be comfortable with either of those. Again, sometimes with clients, if they're coming to us with special needs beneficiaries, things that are really complicated, we can't do that just because we know it's going to be like, an hour to 2 hours of time. But the vast majority of, to me, like attorneys you can trust are going to give you something like that, because you should be able to meet with them and talk about it and ask them questions. To me, some questions to ask are, first, are you talking to the attorney? Are you talking to an attorney, or are you talking to somebody who's not an attorney and is somehow just trying to tell you
intake
next steps, right?
Yeah.
And again, intake, if it's just like scheduling, is fine. But if it's like somebody marketing to you and like you haven't even met the attorney yet, I have some more questions. And ask what amount of time you get to spend with the attorney. So for us, we make sure that there's a draft review in which we go through all of the documents with the clients. We offer it virtually or in person. That's really important. And then we're at the signing. And so an attorney will be at the signing with the notary and the witnesses. We complete the signing, and then there's a closing meeting. And not every place out there is going to have that. And so if somebody says, you're going to get all these documents and it's cheap, it feels so good and it's cheap, they're like, and you just handle the signing yourself.
Godspeed.
Honestly, that to me is one of the most important rooms to be in, because that's where a lot of the final questions and worries and things like that.
We had a couple different printouts during our signing.
Because it's really a final draft review, and people are seeing things in black and white.
And they're like, that's what I put? No, that's not what I meant.
Exactly. And so, those to me are tips just in terms of like when you're speaking to the attorney, be like, process, costs, are they willing to speak to you in a certain way? And then what amount of it is actually personal and based on you versus like, it's just
another
like a template. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the crux of that is like actually talking about it with people. Right. And like making it more of an open conversation. This feels like such a hush hush behind the like scenes conversation people don't talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true among like my peers, especially with my immediate friends sitting here at the mics today, but like other young moms, I feel like I'm hearing this more and more. I think it's harder for me. We didn't talk about this till I had kids. So like clearly missed the early boat, but I think it's almost harder to start the conversation with family members. Like my brother, when I think about my nephews, my parents, my mother-in-law, that feels like any tips on how to start that conversation?
She's like, I'm not a family therapist.
I really appreciate the question.
We missed the boat for a Christmas dinner conversation. Hey. okay.
But I don't think the Christmas dinner, that's not where I would have the conversation.
Yeah, no.
Along with who you voted for. Along with who you voted
Yes.
for.
Well, let me just tell you before you answer that, we ended up having a lot of this conversation when my grandpa died.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
at the hotel after his funeral, because he wanted a bagpipe player. And I had no idea he had wanted a bagpipe player. He was a Mason. This is a thing. I was like, that's good to know. Like, who knew that? It wasn't written anywhere, but people knew. And so, a bottle of wine later, Mom, what do you want? I have another Google Doc of like, it's not formal at all. It was far more about like arrangements and that piece, but that happened naturally in that space.
It sounds like we need wine for these conversations.
I think wine or coffee or whatever preferred beverage is can definitely help.
Pastries.
But I don't have the details of like financial, like power of attorney in that conversation. That was more like, what do you want your funeral to look like?
So a couple different things, which is first, we encourage clients to do what's called a life drill. And I would encourage this.
A life what?
A life drill.
Is it like a fire drill?
Kind of.
I like it. Tell me more.
How many of us have done a fire drill?
My husband makes us do it pretty much every year.
Not at our
I love that so much. Can you just let us know when it is so we can also do it?
Have had a fire,
Never.
Never.
right?
Well, actually, Steve and I have been in one, which is why he makes us do it.
Yeah, that was like the
I'm sorry.
It was like the first time he met your family.
That was the first time he met my family, there was a fire.
And it was a trailer and you were safe. But yes, that might have be part of why he makes you do annual fire drills.
But he makes me do annual fire drills.
But the point is, we do these things or tornado drills or other drills that I certainly don't want to talk about today because stuff can happen.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage all of you, and this is not about estate planning, but it does to me make it a little easier with your family. First, blame your lawyer, right? So step one of talking to your family, blame your lawyer.
I love it.
Which is saying, I was talking to my attorney and she was really, telling me like this is super important. I need to know just a couple quick things. First, how do I get into your house? If I needed to, do I have a key? Do I know where the secret key is held? How do I get into the house? Once I am in the house, where are your important documents? Are they in a safe? If so, do I know the code? Where would I find that code? And then within that safe or wherever they keep the documents, can I find the information to get into your computer and your phone?
All the
And if not,
passwords.
is there a way to get there? That is not the documents, which of course I would love to have, but those will get you. So for example, we kind of going back in time, we were talking about knowing your wishes. Honestly, I tell people, you don't have to tell anybody your wishes, right? Like those are yours. You can change them as many times as you want. But for the love of God, tell people where they can find them.
Like write it down and have it in a place they can access.
We have literally had people, going through probate where like 3 months in, we finally find the document, in case I'm dead, but like nobody
Knew where it
found
was.
until that.
Yeah.
It's nothing unless you tell people. And so I would rather that we know, okay, you do have some documents or something, whatever you consider important. And so I know I'm not going to have to, break your window to get into your house and immediately start to cost money. I can find your documents. And then most of our life is on our cell phone and our computer. And so, I had a client who was a kind of computer security expert, and he's like, you would just share the password with people? I was like, listen, I'm not a computer security expert, so not putting that out there. I have yet to find somebody who stole somebody else's identity because they managed to get into their home, figure out the passcode, and that's how they broke into the computer and got all the passwords, right?
Cyber.
I deal with families all the time. We deal with families all the time who are locked out of computers, and it costs a ton of time, effort, and money to get into them. And so if you're not comfortable putting the password, write it in a way your family would understand it. So the city where I was born, the year I got married, ! And your birth, something that could be understood
Deciphered,
by a family member. And, for me, when you were talking to your family, I don't necessarily care or think that you have the right to know everything that they know, but you want to say, this is really important. These are things I need to know about. And then if they say,
I'm going to need a write down of these questions.
I have a little printout.
Great. Can you share it with us, and we'll share with our listeners
Yes.
your little printout also? Because I was like,
freebie.
I need these questions so I can ask my mother and my mother-in-law. Because I don't know if we know these questions.
I don't know any of these, but my parents are about to move into a new home, and I feel like this will be like a perfect moment
To get the key, get the code. Yeah.
Yeah.
to start that conversation and to make sure that I know what I need to know.
I think the only people who know how to get into my house and my passwords are you all.
But that's another thing. And all the documents, another thing that I'm really happy to hear you do is the Google documents, which again, I was actually talking about today with a client. They were sharing with me that they had a family member who presented them with an awesome binder. It was like, if I'm gone, here's all
I've seen that for sale online. These are the social ads I get.
Very different from my ads.
I do. It's like a package you buy with the cute little binders and stickers.
Exactly. And then
I didn't buy it.
They asked me if I provided something like that. And I said, I hate to disappoint you, but realistically, like, how many times are people going to make that binder? Not a lot, right? They're going to do it one time. They're going to feel very proud of themselves. And then that's going to be it.
Never update it.
But if you use a Google document and you share it with people, that actually might be updated from time to time, or might be something that doesn't feel as scary or
because we have a ShePack document that has as much as like our travel numbers, our favorite coffee.
Hey, don't give away too much secrets here.
But this is important.
Like if I go to Starbucks, what is your Starbucks order? I can tell you what, someone wants in the cold or the heat. I can tell you what kind of milk, or favorite candy. I can also tell you if they want to be cremated or buried.
It can be an easy thing. Like, if anything happens to me, like, here are a couple trusted people to call. Here's the name of my lawyer. Here's the name of my financial advisor. It
That's a good point. Because my previous lawyer was like, oh, I'll file it here too. And I have our will filed in our fireproof safe in my office.
Do I know the code?
Tanya knows where it is. I don't even know if I know the code. Let's be real. But
okay, yeah.
That's the thing to figure out.
Do you know how hard and how expensive it is to break into that fireproof box?
It's not locked.
Oh.
It stays open.
It lives open because I can't remember the code.
I wasn't sure if I should say that part, but I was like, I've never seen that.
There's nothing important in there. No,
Mine is locked, and y'all
I know the code. I was getting to a point, but I forgot about it.
Binders that literally just like zipper close. They're fire and waterproof, and that's what we have. But at least like in the event of a house fire, it's going to be fine. If burglars come.
Oh, I remember my point. But my lawyer's like, oh, we'll have it on file here, but no one knows their name, their office. So yeah, that doesn't really work.
And I was told by my attorney, they can't tell you that they are your attorney.
Even? Oh, really?
Yes. Unless
that's awkward.
Documents in hand, they cannot tell you that they are their attorney, and they will not provide the documents to somebody.
I get that. That makes sense.
So we have, with our clients, every client signs off on their closing, saying that if somebody came to me and they were listed in the documents. So if you came to me and you said, I'm listed in the documents, I don't have a copy, but I know that I'm in there. Like, could you give it to me? Every client has signed off and said, if I believed that there was a need and I had reason to believe I had the most recent, version, I could share that with you.
Smart.
So you can get it from Sofia.
But I couldn't
Don't die, okay?
I don't want to use Nicole as an example anymore. But basically,
I'm a great example.
Like, I couldn't proactively be like, okay, like I heard this on the news. Like now I'm going to search out these individuals.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so our responsibility is to say nothing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
especially if it's someone who has assets.
I didn't think about that because I was just like, well, everybody knows who I use as my attorney. They'll just go to my attorney and get the information from them. And they're like, actually, they cannot. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? They cannot? Okay, great. I'll need to tell you. And that's when I told you, hey, they're here. This is the code. This is the information. You were like, okay, good to know. But like, I didn't think about that before that.
There's so much homework for me to do from this.
It feels really overwhelming. It does.
So let's pause and take it just like every other. Like, how many big tasks do we all take on in our lives? You all are running a podcast. Right? That's a pretty huge and crazy thing. If somebody right now came to me and we're like, put together a podcast, I have no idea. It's huge and overwhelming. Take small steps and find the right support. And so say, okay, I know I need these documents. I'm going to reach out and find somebody I trust to talk to and see what the first step is. And if I find the right help, they will guide me through the rest of it so it doesn't feel like this. And so, I think that really don't try to find all the answers. And I would actually encourage you not to because you're not going to.
Yeah.
So do not think, oh, man, who am I going to change here and what do I need to do next? Be like, okay, I know I need to do something, right? Like us taking the first step to do something with reaching New Year's goal, taking the first step to do whatever it is. That's all you need to do, and then see where it goes from there, and give yourself a timeline. And so I have learned this, and Nicole, I think we talked about this before, I'm very deadline driven, mostly because I'm like a procrastinator inside, and I'm like, okay, the deadline's coming up. But,
Same.
Say to yourself, I have 2 weeks, or a week, or whatever like your deadline is, and like, I'm going to hold myself to this to reach out and do this next thing.
This is going on my 2025 goals planning.
Can we make a bingo
2025 is too
card
big.
of like things that you have to do?
I was going to say months. You're talking weeks.
No, because it passes, right?
It does. And it has. Years have gone by and it's
Like a
never the
January-
thing.
One of my January goals.
January. So we're going to encourage the listeners to go and like go to your local trusted moms group or friends group and ask who they're using for their estate planning. Look at all the recommendations, go do your research, meet with them. Usually if it's a simple thing, they'll meet with you and consult so that you can figure out what you need. And Sophia's going to graciously provide us this like little tiny checklist of the like 5 things to ask the people.
Yeah.
We're going to post it on ShePack Unleashed so you guys can follow and download this little, we'll put it on our link tree. You know we have a link tree?
I noticed that.
Okay. Do you know we have a link tree? I was just checking.
I do now.
We're going to add it to our link tree.
Okay.
So that people can go and find it.
I love it.
I really appreciate you coming, Sophia. I acknowledge your like incredible expertise, but appreciate you can come and have a glass of wine and be another friend on the couch too.
Honestly, I appreciate you guys having me, and this was really fun. As I said to all of you, I rarely leave my house after it gets dark outside. Can I drive in the dark? Have I done this recently? I'm a block away from
Like a block away. Not
I could have got you in the golf cart.
cold for the golf cart. It's like 30 degrees outside
It's
right
very
now.
cold.
It is chilly.
But thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we thank you. Everybody needs to do this, and this is one of our January goals. So like,
January goal. I can do that. That feels doable to start the process.
start the process just to like get the acknowledged, right? And so comment to us if you've done this. I want to hear from our listeners if they've done this or they still need to do it.
Or anything that threw you a curveball in your process you
Yeah.
think other people should know about. I love it. Thank you so much for being a part of our pack. This is Jenny, Nicole, Tanya, and our very special guest, Sophia, signing off. Stay wild and fierce.
And what's our little extra thing?
Financially savvy. The paperwork that saves family feuds. I don't know. I need to.
It's too late. That's the one we're going with.
Nope.
I'm the editor. So just so you know, that's how it worked. Thank you so much.
It's a mom's legacy hack.